On the 22nd of March 2017, 52-year-old Khalid Masood drove a car into pedestrians on the pavement of Westminster Bridge, killing 3 people and injuring more than 50. Masood then entered Parliament and fatally stabbed PC Keith Palmer before he was shot dead by police. His attack, with a vehicle and a knife, was relatively unsophisticated, but made headlines around the world. As other lethal attacks in continental Europe and beyond have shown, a marauding terrorist firearms attack is fast-moving, unpredictable, and designed to kill and maim large numbers of civilians. There may be simultaneous attacks in different locations, involving fire and explosions. Hostages may be taken to prolong the attack. An MTFA will test the ability of the emergency services to work together safely to save lives.
Okay, Paul, just a few more seconds, mate.
This DVD will highlight and explain what every specialist responder needs to know in the event of an MTFA.
Breathe in.
A specialist responder is someone who is suitably trained and equipped to respond to and work within the warm zone of an MTFA. Should one occur, each service will command its own assets and personnel, but the overarching strategic aim of the response is shared: to reduce harm and save as many lives as possible. Therefore, the fundamental principle on which this guidance is based is ensuring both the safety of the public and of emergency responders.
The role of the Fire and Rescue Service is to support the ambulance service working in the warm zone to treat and remove casualties and deal with any small fires that may occur in that area.
The key role of the ambulance service in responding to an MTFA incident is the rapid patient assessment, triage and treatment within the warm zone.
The key is, if you consider what the police are going to be trying to do, they're going to try and locate and then confront the threat.
Hello police, where's your emergency?
An MTFA may happen without warning, but signs that one is underway will soon become obvious in control rooms.
How many people? How many men with guns?
Operators will receive a large volume of calls. They have a vital role to play in gathering and sharing intelligence.
Gents, just to confirm that this has been declared an Operation Plato incident.
Only the police control room can declare an Operation Plato, the multi-agency response to an MTFA. But that declaration may be based on information and intelligence provided to them by other agencies.
Have you got sufficient capability at this moment in time to manage the initial response?
Teleconferencing will be set up between the partner agencies to coordinate their response and agree a rendezvous point.
The overarching priority, whatever happens for the police, is to confront the threat and to neutralise the threat. But clearly behind that, they're going to need to establish some form of command and control of the incident as quickly as possible to enable the overarching strategy of saving as many lives as possible.
The changing nature of an MTFA means consideration must be given to safe routes to and from the incident. Information will be shared between control rooms and responders.
Weapons? Yeah, so we just have some information that grenades have been used, so there is firearms.
Co-location of on-scene commanders is essential and allows those commanders to perform the functions of command, control and coordination face-to-face at a single and easily identified location. This is known as the Forward Command Post, or FCP, which is a location near to the scene where the response by the emergency services is managed. For an Operation Plato response, Forward Command Posts, FCPs, are points from which specialist emergency personnel deploy into hot and warm zones. There may be more than one FCP, and this will be dependent on the number of attack sites encountered.
So the main entrance.
Once the Forward Command Post, the FCP, is set up, on-scene commanders will establish a joint understanding of risk, or JUR.
We're trying to establish a warm zone in Block 3 now.
The Joint Understanding of Risk, JUR, is the process by which commanders work towards a common understanding of the threats, hazards and risks in order to inform decisions on deployments and the control measures required to mitigate any identified risks. They will then decide the zones, hot, warm and cold, and set the limits of exploitation, the LOE. Hot zones are where attackers are present and/or there is an immediate threat to life. Warm zones are where attackers are believed to have passed through and could enter or re-enter imminently. These areas cannot be guaranteed to be safe. Cold zones are the areas where it's been assessed that there is no immediate threat to life. The limits of exploitation, LOE, are the furthest points to which emergency services personnel will operate in warm zones. Limits of exploitation will be jointly agreed by on-scene commanders as part of the ongoing joint understanding of risk. The location of these zones will be constantly reviewed as the incident progresses and may change. This is an example of an initial Joint Emergency Services response to an MTFA incident. Emergency responders will meet at the RVP or RVPs. Police armed intervention will deploy to the hot zone to confront and neutralise the threat. The Tactical Coordinating Group will meet at a pre-planned location. The forward command post will be set up in the cold zone. Specialist teams will be deployed to the warm zone to treat and evacuate casualties and/or to manage fire hazards. In the event of an attack like that on the shopping mall in Nairobi, it may be necessary to determine zones within buildings. This will depend on their construction and layout, taking into account lines of sight and gunfire.
This whole area is warm now, yeah?
I would suggest that whole area is warm. I'm getting sentries put along here.
Yeah.
It is the on-scene commanders who will decide where and when resources are deployed and ensure that specialist responders have MTFA PPE.
Yeah.
This consists of helmet, vest and coverall.
If you discover an IED, immediate evacuation to the forward.
Staff must be fully briefed on all risks prior to their deployment.
If there's casualties there that are identified, fine, we'll hold, we'll give you protection.
The police on-scene commander will advise on the availability of armed police escorts.
You're going to go initially with 2 cars and 6 officers.
Yeah.
If the nature of the incident means there is insufficient time to establish a forward command post, or FCP, Specialist Emergency Services personnel may be deployed from the RVP. Each service may deploy a warm zone coordinator.
A warm zone coordinator in common fire service parlance would be known as a safety officer. So it is somebody that would work to oversee the people that are working in the warm zone and ensure their safety while they're becoming very focused on the task in hand.
Where multiple attacks are underway, each location will have its own RVP. Safe routes must be established to and from the various RVPs. This is the responsibility of both control room staff and the Tactical Coordinating Group, or TCG. The TCG is the multi-agency group of commanders that meets at a pre-planned location to determine, coordinate and support the delivery of a tactical response to an emergency. If for any reason the warm zone becomes compromised, specialist responders should inform the on-scene commander, immediately withdraw, or if unsafe to do so, adopt the stay safe procedure. They should immediately seek out and move behind substantial cover from gunfire. Identify cover that is out of direct view of armed assailants if substantial physical cover cannot be found. It is the role of the on-scene commander to communicate with the respective Tactical Coordinating Group, or TCG.
we are all working to the same script, and that script is around public safety and the preservation of life, doing what is a really significant incident.
Obviously, we've declared an MTFA, it's identify, locate, confront and neutralise any threats.
Public confidence is dependent on a clear internal and external communication plan.
When we identify the war zone, I'll say to you, one is...
Commanders at the Forward Command Post, the FCP, will agree how they communicate with specialist responders in the warm zone.
If an ID actuates, immediate evacuation.
Withdrawal procedures must also be agreed and understood. Evacuation signals will be agreed between the emergency services on-scene commanders at the FCP and confirmed as part of the crew's pre-deployment briefing. International incidents have shown that an MTFA may develop into a siege. In this event, the ambulance and FRS command and control structure remains the same as for an MTFA.
Trojan Echo receiving.
However, you may hear different radio terminology because some of the police command roles may change.
Where there is a siege, the police will remain in overall command and coordination of that incident to resolve the threat. So in terms of the actual command structure, there isn't a great deal of difference, apart from the fact that a siege is more isolated. We will isolate a siege ground commander at tactical firearms commander level who will be out on the ground to command that particular siege.
International events have shown us that terrorists use many different means to attack the civilian population, and international events in particular have shown us that MTFA has become one of the ways of doing that, and we've seen that used in Mumbai, we've seen that used in France, and we've seen it used across near Europe as well. So it is only right and proper that in the UK we planned for how we would respond to such an event.
The ambulance service has lead responsibility for the management of casualties within the warm zone, with fire service personnel in support.
Okay, stay still.
Casualties will be rapidly assessed, triaged and treated. There are two tactical options to save as many lives as possible within the shortest time frame.
On your side.
Treat and extricate. The triage and treatment of a casualty followed by immediate extrication. Treat and leave. The casualty is triaged and treated, but extraction is delayed until there are sufficient emergency service resources available to do so effectively. Based on best practice in the battlefield, ambulance and fire specialist responders will use combat application tourniquets to stem bleeding from high-velocity rounds or shrapnel. Suitable stretchers are used to move patients.
We can expect to see gunshot, ballistic injuries as well as blasts. Key for treating those is rapid arrest of hemorrhage, using specialist blast dressings and or tourniquets, but equally getting patients away and out of the warm zone as quickly as possible.
Mind your back, mate, in the middle.
A number of casualty collection points, or CCPs, will be established to provide life-saving treatments. The location of these may need to be moved as the threat changes.
Ambulance parking officer to control, going to deploy 5 ambulances.
Ambulances will wait at an agreed rendezvous point until called to the Casualty Collection Point, CCP, to move patients to the Casualty Clearing Station, CCS. They will then be taken to receiving hospitals, including specialist units, to treat burns or head injuries. In Paris in November 2015, hospitals experienced the sudden arrival of dozens of casualties.
At an MTFA incident, we can expect to see significant numbers of patients and casualties, which will require a multi-agency response. So whilst the ambulance service and fire service may be treating those patients, the police may be required to search some of those patients in case they are the perpetrators.
In an MTFA, the role of the FRS is to reduce the risk posed by fire to all emergency services and the public, and assist in the treatment and evacuation of casualties. Firefighters are extinguishing this fire because in this exercise it could compromise the extraction of casualties.
We would only fight a fire at an MTFA if it was affecting life-saving operations or preventing the police being able to access the terrorists. If the fire was having no impact on that, it would probably be better to not fight the fire, and that's a complicated decision that would have to be made by the on-scene commanders on the day.
The dynamics of the incident will dictate the best solution. Does the fire need to be fought? If not, it should be monitored and this decision reviewed. If it does, can the use of fixed installations or external firefighting tactics be employed to minimise exposure to firefighters? What level of PPE is required? If no thermal protection is needed, wear MTFA PPE. Typical firefighting in this PPE would be rolling out a hose and deploying a ground monitor. Where thermal protection is needed, wear MTFA PPE and structural fire gear. If respiratory protection is required, wear MTFA PPE, structural fire gear and breathing apparatus. Are police required in breathing apparatus for safe system of work? If yes, commit CERT, Specialist Entry Recovery Team. This is not currently a national capability. A combination of these 4 options may be used at the same time. The process should be kept under constant review.
270, thank you.
Where they're deployed, Specialist Entry Recovery Teams, or CERT, will wear MTFA PPE, structural fire gear and breathing apparatus.
270.
The first option is for the Police Armed Response Vehicle CERTs to go forward, deal with the fire and neutralise the threat. But if they can't, then at that stage, firefighters and armed response officers will deal with the fire. As the threat is neutralised, each floor then becomes the warm zone. Remember, the hot zone refers to the threat from firearms and is not to be confused with hot in reference to the fires. Remember also that the warm zone can become hot again, and firefighters will never work in the hot zone.
Those that are already well versed in wearing breathing apparatus will realise that breathing apparatus is heavy, it impairs movement and to some extent it restricts the visibility. All of this is further compounded by the operating environment that an MTFA presents with the protective personal equipment that goes with working in that environment as well.
The nature of automatic gunfire is what makes an MTFA potentially so deadly. This is an AK-47, as used in the attacks in Paris. Other weapons may have different effects. This exercise has been staged to show the damage that can be caused over a range of 130 metres. Bullets go straight through a single skin wall. An 11-inch cavity wall fares little better. A car, cover of choice in so many Hollywood movies, can keep you out of sight. But if you're being fired at, it won't keep you out of danger. Again, from a distance of 130 metres, bullets pierce the door, hitting the mannequin and passing through it. In the end, only the engine block stops the bullets. Under the national Stay Safe guidance, the priority is to ensure you and the public are safe. If possible, gather up information for control rooms, but don't put yourself in an at-risk environment. Survivors will need your help. They'll hide and may not easily be visible or follow instructions immediately. They will be scared and confused.
Oh, my ribs! Okay, keep walking, keep walking.
In the event of an MTFA, specialist responders will work together according to the joint operating principles. Operational intelligence is shared by the emergency services. Specialist responders will be deployed based on a joint understanding of risk, which must be kept under constant review. Communication lines agreed between all responders before entering the warm zone and in the event of a tactical withdrawal or emergency evacuation.
You have to get yourself mentally prepared for what a scene like this is going to feel like. And the best way of doing that is to be as well trained as possible and to constantly exercise your plans. One of those plans is how you work together in partnership with all of the blue light services. And this is well tested, it's well tried, but we want people who it's not going to be their first experience. This is going to be the worst day of our lives, and this is an opportunity for us to save life. And in order to save life, we've got to be as well trained as possible.
As with any emergency, the overarching aim of the response is to save lives and reduce harm.
Okay, they're just going to strap me to the board now.